Sis, look at that clicker. All right, so sis, has it become apparent to you that all of my dresses are technically the same? They're technically the same. I'm pretty chronic, sis. I'm pretty chronic, right? I have what I call the COVID. I have my COVID clothes, right? I have my COVID clothes, right? And that's probably, there has been a lot of inconveniences, right? But one of the things that I have enjoyed is really like this very easy breezy, way of dress, right? At most, I'm gonna go to the grocery store and pick up my mail. All right, that's at most, right? I was quarantined before, but I'm really quarantined, right? I can't get excited about going out with a mask on. I just can't. I just haven't created the excitement around that. All right, so sis, it's Thursday, right? So anyway, sis, you already know that I love every day. Right? You know I love every day. And listen, I hope that at this point, if you've been following along with this content, I hope that it's become clear to you that I don't love every day because every day is perfect, right? I love every single day is because I'm on the planet, sis. I am on the planet. And as long as I am on the planet, I have the opportunity to expand, right? Now, once I'm not on the planet, I really ain't got too many problems, sis. I don't have too many problems, but while I'm on the planet, right, I might as well, and I know I can be a little callous. I can be quite callous. I'm a Sagittarius. Sagittarius, they border in between being very callous and being very optimistic, right? And actually, that's what I'm going to talk about today. This is going to be very, very, kind of up and down, kind of like in terms of your mood, right? But hopefully I'm going to share at least one thing that's going to add some value to you, right? Okay, so anyway, sis, that's what I want to talk about today, sis, right? So during this process, and you're going to even see that I'm going to go up and down in my explanations. You're going to see my moods go up and down and move around just quite a bit. Okay, sis? All right, good. So now that we got that out. So here's a question that I would like to ask you. I would like to ask you, but what if you live, sis, right? That's a question that I would like to ask, right? I would like to ask because I know that there is like a huge focus on death right now. We really cannot get away from it, right? We have to look at the death tolls. We have people in our actual family that may be either sick, or we have people that might have even passed away. Not only are people passing away from the coronavirus specifically, but there has been death at an alarming rate when it comes to celebrities, right? And if someone has like a lot of notoriety surrounding them, now everyone knows that something has happened. So we've had to deal with that. Not only that we've also had death by way of racial tension that still exists in this country after all this time, right? So we've had to deal with all of those different levels of death this year, right? And here's a question that I'd like to pose in the most sensitive possible way that I possibly could, right? The real question is, but what if you live, sis, right? What if you live, right? What does that look like? And it is probably likely, if you look at the statistics, that it is probably, and then there goes me being callous, and I'm trying not to be. I'm trying the best that I can. But it is a higher probability that you're actually going to live, sis. It is a higher probability, right? So what I would like to kind of move your focus towards is asking yourself that, yes? So yes, dealing with death, dealing with grief, it is something that we have to deal with. It is something that we have to sometimes see a therapist for. It is something that you have to journal about specifically. I actually lost one of my friends this year, a very, very close friend. She didn't pass away from the coronavirus. She was actually murdered. So this is not something that I'm talking about in a very detached way. It's not something that I'm having to cope with, and I'm speaking to you, just from this theoretic perspective, right? This is something that I myself had to encounter and having to deal with. Now, granted, this wasn't my sister, my mother, my cousin, my son, my husband, my children, so it wasn't like a very close relationship, but it is someone that I had a very, very deep connection with. So I did have to go through some level of grief, right? And I'm still going through that process of grief, so much so that this person still visits me in my dreams and all these type of things like that. So in a way, on one part of it, I am going to to be, you know, someone that's going to feel a little detached, right? Just because I do want to jar you in a way to ask you some very potent questions, right? To start just shifting your mind like that. So the question is, what if you live, right? So oftentimes we get into this process, and we even sometimes with even people, I'll hear people and they'll say that, like, I'll die for you, right? That's something that they, you know, that is the way that they are able to really just, you know, proclaim their love for another person, like, I'll die for you, right? And always for me, there's always a push where, you know, I'd really like to, instead of you dying for me, because particularly I just don't want you to die for me. That's not like a requirement. But I would like for the focus to be like living for me, right? Right? Instead of living a life where it makes it, where we can coexist in a way that works for you, in a way that works for me, right? In terms of all of the relationships that we have, all the relationships, whether this is a professional relationship or whether this is a personal relationship, right? So not needing that whole identity, like, you know, this whole like ride or die type of ideology assigned and, you know, associated with our relationships that we give priority to, you know, making that be like, you know, the end all be all. Die for me, right? I'd rather a life well lived, you know, than having to constantly cope with the grief of death and the grief of an end, right? So I'm going to ask the question again, but what if you live, sis, right? What if you live, right? So there are some questions, right, where as in, you know, if I make it, you know, out of this year, right? And that's where I'm going to put my focus on, because I do the preparation that I possibly can to control the possibility of me having to come in contact with the coronavirus in a very, you know, deep way, right? So I do the best that I can for that. I'm not a scientist. You look at some of the stats from the CDC, sis, you know what I'm saying, right? So on the other hand, as a person, I do the best that I can to be as responsible as I can with my life and responsible with my children's lives, right? Do the best that I can when I come in contact with any person, you know, to do the best that I can to, you know, eliminate those possibilities the best that I can. But hey, it's the best that I can. My best efforts could fail me, right? Right. So, but outside of the preparation, right, in terms of building my immune system and, you know, doing what I can to maintain my health and keep other people safe, right, there is still that whole possibility that I might live, right? What does that look like? So some of my clients and some of the people that I communicate with online, they've kind of like adapted like this YOLO type of principle, you know, like you only live once, which, yeah, it's true. But what if you live, right? That is the real question. What does that look like for you? What do some of those questions look like? One of the jarring questions is, aside from what if you live, right? The other one is like, are you even prepared for death, right? Are you even prepared for that? In the event that something should happen to you, are you actually really prepared, you know? Are you gonna fall within those statistics of that very high statistics of individuals who have to use GoFundMe to fund their funeral, right? So even in this YOLO, you know, kind of perception or whatever, are you going to be leaving debt for your family to have to deal with if something were to happen to you? Have you had some of those type of questions with yourself to make sure that you have a plan in place? What about a will, right? What if something were to happen to you? Let's say you don't necessarily die. Let's say what happens that you get really, really sick, right? And it has an impact on your mental health, you know? Do you have things in place to kind of support you and navigate that, right? So those are some of the questions that I would like to offer over on this Thursday, since it's a super high taskmaster type of day, just to kind of put some of those thoughts and those processes on you, right? But once we deal with those things, right, let's make sure we go check. Yeah, I do have life insurance. Maybe I don't have the highest amount of life insurance that I would like to have, but I do have some life insurance in place in the event that something were happen to me, that I'm not adding to that tab, number one, grief that my family has to deal with, but on the other side, I'm making sure that I have some financials in place so that I don't add to their grief, now debt, right? And trying to figure out how they're going to pay for my funeral, right? So that would be one part of the process, right? In terms of what if you die, right? And then the either larger one, where you're not going to fall into the statistic that you are going to survive and you are going to live. What if you live, sis, right? What if you live? Right? Those are some of the questions, and that is probably the most likely odds. You're probably going to live, sis. You're probably going to live, right? You are. Maybe you may have to deal with some type of sickness, but it's likely that you're going to live, right? Just based on the statistics, more people are living than dying and things like that. I know, it's my science mind. It's my science mind. It can be like that sometimes, where I get very, very detached It feels like I don't feel you and I'm not a part of it, but it's not that. It's just that I have to ask these very jarring questions so that, number one, it can propel me to think at a higher level, and that it can also challenge you to think at a higher level. So if in some way I trigger you and I feel like I'm not able to empathize, or I'm not able to, properly emotionalize my feelings towards anyone that might have lost someone, that is totally not what it is that I'm trying to do. That is not my intention at all. So if you feel that, I'd like to offer you my sincere apologies. My real goal, my truest goal, is to begin to challenge, right, you in your mind space in terms of, okay, sis, so what's next? What does life after COVID look like for you, right? What does that look like? Are you going to still operate with your finances the same way that you're operating right now? The way that you are operating in your business, right? The way that you're operating in your business, someone has a dog. The way that you're operating in your business, are you going to continue in that way, right? What are some adjustments that you need to make so that you can begin to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are coming, right? Opportunities with the stock market, opportunities with the housing market, opportunity with being able to solve some of the newer problems that we have with a business solution, right? So that's the question that I would like to ask today. What if you live, sis? What does that look like for you? What if you are more in alignment with the statistical data that says that you're going to survive this? Are you going to come out on the other side in a way that you are really, really proud of? Okay, so those are some of the conversations that we're going to be having in Money Therapy. It'll be more of a dialogue. The 5-day Money Therapy Challenge, it'll be more of a dialogue as opposed to a monologue. I hate to really talk at you. I really like to talk with you, and that's more so what's going to happen during the 5-day challenge. So if I do say something that does sound very triggering, it won't be just me having this one-way communication. It'll be open up in a dialogue where we can have these two-way conversations, and that way you can really feel my intentions behind what I'm saying. So it did feel a little callous even coming out of my own mouth, right? But I do want to offer that challenge to myself. And one of the things that you can know about me is that I don't ask questions to other people that I haven't asked to myself first. I'm my first client. Holla, sis. It's Thursday or whatever. Later. I'm going to use my clicker and I'm going to be proud. I'm going to be so proud. Here it is. Don't publicly shame me. It did it. I think it stopped. All right, sis. This is all I can do. This is the best that I can do. These are my best efforts, sis. These are my best efforts. Best.